I came home to silence, which should have been my first warning. The apartment door clicked shut behind me, grocery bags cutting circulation to my fingers, cheap pasta, discount coffee, the kind of budget that comes from being a graduate student who stupidly thought splitting rent with your girlfriend meant building something. The hallway light flickered its usual epileptic rhythm, and rain tapped against the window at the end of the corridor like nature's impatient fingernails. Inside, Mara was folding clothes into her suitcase. Not packing, folding, carefully, like she was arranging a new life, one shirt at a time. "Hey," I said, setting the bags on the counter. My voice came out flat, which surprised me. I'd expected something else, anger maybe, or confusion, but what came out was just dead air wrapped in a word. She didn't look up. "Hey." The suitcase sat open on our bed, my bed now, I supposed, and she was placing things inside with the kind of precision people use when they've rehearsed this moment in their head 100 times. A sweater I'd bought her last Christmas, the blue jeans that made her look like she'd stepped out of a catalog, 3 of my coffee mugs, because apparently moving out included petty theft. "Going somewhere?" I asked, though I already knew. The human brain is funny that way. It recognizes the shape of disaster before the details fill in. "I need to talk to you," she said, still not looking at me. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. The rain picked up outside. "I'm listening." Finally, she turned. Her face had that expression I'd seen her practice in the mirror when she had to deliver bad news to her study group. Sympathetic but firm, like a doctor about to tell you the surgery didn't work. "I'm moving in with Professor Rook temporarily, just until I finish my thesis." The words hung there, naked and ugly. "You're moving in with Alder Rook," I repeated, making it a statement instead of a question. "Dr. Rook," she corrected, which was somehow the worst part. "It's practical, Ethan. His wife is away visiting her sister for 3 weeks, and he's offered to help me finish the thesis. It's due in—" "I know when it's due," I cut her off. "I've been hearing about that thesis for 8 months. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories." She sighed, and I recognized that sigh. The one that said I was being difficult, that I wasn't understanding the bigger picture, that my feelings were an inconvenient obstacle to her ambitions. This is about my career, about my future. The work requires his input, and going back and forth between here and campus wastes time. It's more efficient if you sleep under his roof while his wife is conveniently out of town. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about, Mara? Use small words so my non-thesis writing brain can understand. Her jaw tightened. "Don't be like this." "Like what? Surprised? Angry? Should I be supportive instead? Should I wish you good luck with your totally innocent, definitely academic sleepover with a married professor twice your age? 43 isn't twice my age." The specificity of her correction made my stomach drop. She knew his exact age. Of course she did. I moved to the window, watching rain streak down the glass. The building across the street had its lights on in scattered patterns, like someone had been playing a game of checkers with the windows. "How long?" I asked. "How long what? How long have you been planning this?" She didn't answer right away, which was its own answer. I heard the suitcase zipper close behind me, the sound mechanical and final. "Ethan, look at me." I didn't. "It's 3 weeks, maybe 4. His wife comes back, I move back here, and—" "You're not moving back here. You're being dramatic." I turned around then, and something in my expression made her take a step back. "I'm not being anything. I'm just telling you the obvious thing you haven't figured out yet. You're not moving back here because there is no here anymore." She shook her head. "You're upset. I get it. But this is temporary, and it's professional, and—" "Say it again." "Say what?" "The lie. The one about it being professional. Say it again and watch me not believe you. Her face flushed. You're being unfair. Unfair. I laughed, and it sounded wrong even to my own ears. Mara, his wife is away. You're moving into his house. You're going to eat meals he cooks, sit on his couch, use his shower, sleep in. Where exactly? Guest room? Or is that part of the thesis work too? Guest room, she said quickly. Too quickly. I picked up one of the coffee mugs she'd packed. My favorite, the one with the faded university logo. You're taking this one? I need coffee in the morning. Yeah, me too. I set it on the counter. That one stays. She reached for it, and I grabbed her wrist. Not hard, just enough to stop her. We stood there, frozen, and I could smell something on her scarf. Men's cologne, something expensive and woody that definitely wasn't mine. Let go, she said. I did. When did you start wearing his cologne? It's on your scarf. Right there. I pointed. Creed Aventus, if I'm guessing. Probably a Christmas gift to himself. Do you sleep in his office between classes, Mara? Is that where you picked up the scent? Her face went pale, then red. You're being paranoid. Am I? I walked to the small table by the door where she'd dumped her bag earlier. A faculty parking pass had slipped halfway out, the kind they only give to full-time professors. Whose car have you been riding in? She snatched it away. He gives me rides sometimes. It's raining. Is that a crime now? No, just pathetic. She slapped me. The sound cracked through the apartment like a branch breaking, and for a second we both just stood there, stunned. My cheek stung, but mostly I felt nothing. Just that same flat deadness spreading through my chest like frost. I'm sorry, she said immediately. I didn't mean... Get out. Ethan, get out. She grabbed the suitcase handle and her hand was shaking. You're going to regret this. When you calm down, you'll realize I'm right. This is about my career, about opportunities you can't give me. Good luck, I said. The words came out soft, almost polite, and somehow that made them cut deeper than any insult. Her eyes widened slightly, recognizing the venom disguised as courtesy. We'll talk when I get back, she said, but it sounded like she was trying to convince herself. Sure we will. She wheeled the suitcase to the door, paused with her hand on the knob. I'm not the villain here. Neither am I. She left. The door closed, and I heard her wheels clicking down the hallway. A door opened. Juno Pike from across the hall, the neighbor who pretended she minded her own business, but cataloged every movement in the building like a security system. I heard Mara's voice, brief and defensive. I heard Juno's silence, which was louder than words. Then Mara's footsteps fading toward the stairs. I stood there for a long time, listening to rain and thinking about timeline. 3 months ago, Mara had started staying late at the library. 2 months ago, she'd begun using phrases that sounded wrong in her mouth, academic jargon that belonged to someone older, someone who'd been teaching longer than she'd been alive. 1 month ago, she'd gotten a haircut that made her look older, more serious, more like someone who'd belong on a professor's arm. And 2 weeks ago, I'd seen a text notification flash on her phone while she was in the shower. Still thinking about yesterday, can't focus. The sender. AR. I'd suspected, but suspicion is easy to dismiss when you're scared to face the truth. Now the truth was wearing expensive cologne and offering to help with her thesis, while his wife was out of town. I pulled out my phone and opened my messages, scrolled to the thread from 2 weeks ago, the conversation I'd screenshotted when Mara left her phone unlocked on the counter. Messages between her and Dr. Alder Rook. Nothing explicit. Nothing that would hold up in court. Just the kind of careful flirting that people use when they know they're doing something wrong but want plausible deniability. Need to see you tomorrow. Can't stop thinking about our discussion. You understand me in ways others don't. Academic honeypot, dressed up as mentorship. My thumb hovered over the forward button. I'd saved one other thing: Nadine Rook's contact information, pulled from an old department newsletter I'd found online. Faculty spouse emergency contacts, right there in the public directory, because the university believed in transparency. Then I forwarded that message thread to the professor's wife, who was away at the time. Just a couple of days later, the professor's career and my girlfriend's future were destroyed because I stopped myself. Not yet. First, I needed to watch them both think they'd gotten away with it. Campus looked like it always did. Fluorescent lights humming in hallways that smelled like industrial cleaner and ambition. Concrete floors polished to a dull shine. Bulletin boards advertising therapy dogs and activism meetings. Students shuffling between classes in their performance of being educated. I walked through it all feeling like I was wearing someone else's skin. It was midday, and the main humanities building was packed with the lunch hour traffic. I'd told myself I was going to the library. I'd told myself I wasn't looking for them. But my feet carried me toward the third floor anyway, where the literature department offices were, where Dr. Alder Rook's office door probably had his name on a little placard that made him feel important. I saw them before they saw me, Mara and Rook standing near the elevator bay. Close. Not touching, but close in the way that people get when they're pretending they're not together. His hand hovered near her elbow, ostensibly guiding her toward the conference room, but the gesture was possessive, territorial. She was wearing the cashmere sweater I'd bought her. On her, with him, it looked like a costume. Rook was exactly what you'd expect: tall, fit in that way middle-aged professors get when they start worrying about mortality. Salt and pepper hair, expensive watch, the kind of smile that made undergraduates think he was different from other faculty. The kind of smile that said he knew exactly what he was doing and didn't care about the consequences. They were standing close, talking low, and I watched Mara laugh at something he said. The laugh was different from the one she used with me, more performed, more aware of being watched even when she thought no one was looking. I followed them. Not close, not obviously, just enough to stay in earshot as they walked toward his office. The hallway narrowed, and I ducked into an alcove near the department printer, a spot where grad students went to cry or print thesis drafts or both. Rook's voice carried, "Place is quiet. You'll finish faster there than bouncing between here and your apartment. My wife won't be back until—" They turned a corner, and I lost the rest. But I'd heard enough. My hands were shaking. I realized I'd been holding my breath. "Ethan?" I spun around. Caleb Strain was standing there with a coffee in each hand and an expression that said he knew exactly what I'd been doing. "Walk," he said. We ended up in the campus coffee shop, the one that served burnt espresso and optimism to undergrads who hadn't realized yet that their degrees wouldn't save them. Caleb set a cup in front of me and dropped into the opposite chair. "You look like hell," he said. "Thanks. Want to tell me why you're stalking your ex through the humanities building?" "She's not my ex." Caleb raised an eyebrow. "Then what is she?" I told him. All of it. The suitcase, the cologne, the professor's house, the timeline that didn't add up unless you accepted the obvious conclusion that Mara had been working up to this for months. Caleb listened without interrupting, which was one of his better qualities. When I finished, he sat back and stared at his coffee like it had answers. "So, what are you going to do?" he asked. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." He was right. I'd known since the moment I'd forwarded those messages. "I want to burn it all down." "Then you need his wife's number." I blinked. "What?" "Nadine Rook. You need to call her. Tell her what's happening. Let her handle it." "I don't have her. I know someone who does." Caleb leaned forward. "Ivy Marquette. Works in the registrar's office. She's got access to faculty emergency contacts, spouse information, all that administrative stuff. She hates Rook. He tried to get her written up last semester for processing delays. when really she just refused to fudge his advisee's incomplete grade. And she'll just give me Nadine's number? Not officially. But if you ask nice and explain why, she might mention that faculty spouse contacts are technically semi-public through the university's emergency notification system. Might even tell you which coffee shop she frequents and what time. I stared at him. That's plausible deniability. Ivy doesn't leak files. She just helps concerned community members access information that's already available through proper channels. He grinned. It's amazing what you can find when you know where to look. The next day, I had Nadine Rook's phone number. It sat in my contacts like a loaded gun, her name spelled out in letters that felt heavier than they should. I'd saved it under NR in case Mara ever looked at my phone again, though I doubted she would. People who cheat don't usually think their partners are smart enough to cheat back. I didn't call. Not yet. First, I tried to find Mara. Texted her. Can we talk? 3 hours later. Busy. Tried again. I want to apologize. No response. I waited outside her Thursday seminar, the one on contemporary American fiction that she'd been taking with another professor, not Rook. Stood by the door like a stalker, watching students file out. She wasn't there. Asked a girl I recognized from Mara's study group, "Have you seen Mara Voss?" She dropped the class, said she was too busy with thesis work. Of course she did. I tried the library. Her favorite study carrel on the 4th floor was empty. The graduate student lounge was full of people I vaguely recognized, but none of them were her. It was like she'd evaporated. No, not evaporated, relocated. Into Dr. Alder Rook's very convenient, very private world. I was crossing through the faculty parking lot when I saw her. Mara, walking toward a silver Audi sedan with Rook behind the wheel. She had her backpack slung over one shoulder and was laughing at something he'd said. The afternoon sun hit her face, and she looked happy in a way I hadn't seen in months. Something in me snapped. I ran, not sprinting, not Hollywood chase scene running, just fast walking that turned into jogging, that turned into a near collision with a campus shuttle that laid on its horn and swerved. I barely noticed. By the time I reached the parking lot, the Audi was pulling out. I got close enough to see through the rear window, Mara leaning across the center console, Rook's hand on her knee. Then they turned onto the main road and disappeared. I stood there breathing hard, hands on my knees, feeling like I'd just lost a race I didn't know I was running. My phone was in my hand before I'd consciously decided to pull it out. Nadine Rook's number stared at me. I pressed call, let it ring once, hung up. What was I supposed to say? "Hi, your husband is sleeping with my girlfriend?" "Hey, sorry to bother you, but..." I called again. This time, I let it ring. "Hello?" Her voice was crisp, professional. The voice of someone who answered calls from unknown numbers and expected them to be work-related. "Mrs. Rook? Nadine Rook?" "Yes. Who is this?" I'd rehearsed this, practiced the words in my head until they sounded natural. But now, with her actually on the line, everything felt clumsy and obvious. "My name is Ethan Vale. I stopped, started again. "I'm calling about your husband." Silence. The kind of silence that has weight. "I'm listening," she said finally. "He's been having an affair with my girlfriend, Mara Voss. She's a graduate student. I swallowed. "She moved into your house 3 days ago, while you're away." More silence. I could hear something in the background. Maybe a television, maybe traffic. I couldn't tell. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" Her voice hadn't changed. Still professional, still controlled. But there was something underneath it now, something sharp and waiting. "I have text messages. I can forward them. They're not explicit, but they're..." "Forward them." I did. Sent her the screenshots I'd saved. Watched the delivered notification appear on my screen. I heard her phone buzz on the other end of the line. Heard the silence stretch as she looked at them. These are from my husband's personal phone, she said. Yes. How did you get them? Mara left her phone unlocked. I took screenshots. So you invaded her privacy? It wasn't a question, and she wasn't wrong. Yes. Good. Her voice warmed slightly, like I'd passed a test. Men who cheat rely on privacy, on silence, on the women in their lives being too polite to call them out. She paused. What's your girlfriend's full name again? Mara Voss. She's 25, Thesis student in the literature department. And she's living in my house right now. Guest room, she claims. Nadine laughed. It was a cold sound. I'm sure she does. Mr. Vale, I appreciate the call. I'll be handling this personally. Tonight, I'm already packing. I'll be home by 8. My heart was hammering. Do you want me to? Yes, I want you there. 7:45. Park on the street, not the driveway. I want witnesses, and I want him to know exactly how I found out. She paused. You're angry. I can hear it. That's good. Stay angry. It keeps you sharp. She hung up. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the phone, wondering what I'd just set in motion. 7:45. The neighborhood was quiet in that suburban way where people pretend not to notice anything unusual while cataloging every detail. Big houses with big lawns, trees that looked like they'd been planted by a homeowners association, a few cars in driveways, porch lights starting to flicker on as the sun set. I parked 3 houses down from the Rook residence and walked. The house was exactly what I'd expected. 2 stories, brick facade, the kind of place that said, successful academic without being showy about it. A camera doorbell glowed blue near the entrance. I made sure to stand where it could see me. Headlights swept the street. Nadine's car, a black SUV that screamed, I have a lawyer on speed dial, pulled into the driveway. She got out and I finally saw her in person. Late 30s or early 40s. Blonde hair pulled back tight, wearing a coat that probably cost more than my car. She looked at me once, nodded, and walked toward the house. I followed. She didn't knock, used her key, pushed the door open like she owned the place. Because she did. Inside, I heard music. Something classical, pretentious. We walked through the foyer into the living room, and there they were, Mara and Rook on the couch. Not naked, thank God for small mercies, but intimate. Wine glasses on the coffee table. Shoes kicked off, Mara wearing one of his sweaters, the sleeves rolled up, the kind of domestic scene that would have been sweet if it wasn't stolen. They looked up. Mara saw me first. Her face went through about 5 emotions in 2 seconds: confusion, recognition, fear, anger, and finally, something like defiance. Rook saw Nadine a heartbeat later and stood up so fast he knocked over a wine glass. Red liquid spread across the coffee table like a stain that would never come out. Nadine. Sit down, Alder. He didn't sit. This isn't what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like. She turned to Mara. You must be Miss Voss, the thesis student who needs so much extra help. Mara stood up, pulling the sweater tighter around herself. Mrs. Rook, I can explain. You're wearing my husband's clothes in my house while drinking my wine. What exactly is there to explain? We're working on my thesis. Where's your laptop? Nadine asked pleasantly. Mara blinked. What? Your thesis. You're working on it. So where's your laptop, your notes, your research materials? Nadine looked around the room. All I see is wine and comfort. Strange working conditions for academic rigor. Rook moved forward, and I stepped between him and Nadine without thinking about it. He was bigger than me, but I was angrier, and apparently that mattered more because he stopped. You, he said, looking at me. You called her. You did this. Yeah, I did. You had no right. Neither did you. I looked at Mara. Neither did she. Mara's face crumpled. Ethan, please, this isn't... We can fix this. We can... No, I said. We can't. Nadine walked to the couch and picked up Mara's suitcase, which was sitting open in the corner, started throwing Mara's clothes into it without folding anything. You're leaving. Now. You can't just… This is my house. My name is on the deed. My money paid for every brick, so yes, I can. She zipped the suitcase and shoved it toward Mara. Get out. Rook tried to step forward again. Nadine, let's talk about this like adults. Adults don't sleep with their students. She turned to him, and her voice dropped to something colder than I'd heard yet. Adults don't bring children into their marriage bed while their wife is away. Adults don't lie for months and then act surprised when they get caught. She's 25, she's not a… She's young enough to be your daughter, Alder. She's your student. She's dependent on your professional support. And you brought her here. Nadine's voice cracked for the first time. You brought her into our home. The silence was enormous. Mara grabbed her suitcase. I'll get my things tomorrow. Your things are in that suitcase. I'll mail anything else. Nadine opened the front door. Out. Mara looked at Rook, waiting for him to defend her, to fight for her, to do something. But he just stood there, looking smaller than he had 5 minutes ago. She looked at me then. Ethan… I moved aside so she could get through the door. She started to cry. This is your fault. You ruined everything. You're vindictive and… I put my hand on Rook's chest when he tried to move past me toward the door. Not hard, just firm. A boundary. Touch me again, and I'll have you arrested for assault, he said. I smiled. It didn't feel like my smile. You're welcome to try explaining to campus police why I was in your house in the first place. His face went pale. Mara stood on the porch with her suitcase sobbing. I walked out after her, Nadine closing the door behind us both. Ethan, wait. I kept walking. She followed me down the driveway. Please, we can talk about this. I made a mistake. I was confused. The thesis was due, and I was stressed, and he was there, and… Stop. You have to understand. It meant nothing. He means nothing. It was just… Mara, stop talking. She grabbed my arm. I pulled away. Don't walk away from me, she said. After everything we've been through, you owe me. I owe you nothing. You owe me a conversation. You owe me a chance to explain. I saw the texts. I saw you get in his car. I saw you wearing his sweater in his house, drinking his wine. I turned to face her. What else is there to explain? Her face shifted. The tears stopped like someone had flipped a switch. You're going to regret this. Probably. I'll tell people you stalked me, that you harassed me, that you broke into his house, and… There's a doorbell camera. Try again. She stared at me, and I saw the exact moment she realized she had no leverage left. I hate you, she whispered. Good. I walked to my car. She didn't follow. 2 days later, the campus lit up. Not literally. Just the metaphorical fire that happens when scandal hits a university. The kind of fire that spreads through department group chats and student forums and hallway conversations. The kind of fire that makes administrators sweat and lawyers start drafting statements. I first heard about it in the graduate student lounge. Someone's phone buzzed with a news alert from the campus newspaper. Literature professor under investigation for ethics violations. By noon, everyone knew. Dr. Alder Rook had been placed on immediate administrative leave, pending an investigation into inappropriate relationships with students and failure to maintain professional boundaries. The article was careful not to name names, but it didn't have to. Universities are small towns. Everyone filled in the blanks themselves. I was in the library when Caleb texted me, "Have you seen the news?" Me. Yeah. Caleb. Did you know this was coming? Me. Not exactly. Caleb. Bullshit, what did you do? I didn't answer. Instead, I watched the chaos unfold from my usual table on the 4th floor, the one with a view of the main quad, students clustering in groups, faculty walking quickly with their heads down, a news van pulling up to the administration building. At 2 o'clock, Nadine Rook arrived on campus. I saw her from the window, walking across the quad in that same expensive coat, carrying a folder that I knew contained documentation. She walked straight into the provost's office like she'd been invited, which maybe she had been. I went downstairs. The humanities building was buzzing. Students pretending to study while actually refreshing their social media feeds. Professors closing their office doors. Department administrators looking like they wanted to be anywhere else. I took the stairs to the 3rd floor. Nadine was in the hallway outside the department chair's office, talking to someone I recognized, Dr. Hollis Bray, the chair himself. 50-something, gray beard, permanently exhausted expression. He saw me approaching and frowned. "Mr. Vale, this isn't a good time." "I'm just observing," I said. Nadine glanced at me, nodded once, then turned back to Bray. "As I was saying, my husband brought a graduate student into our home while I was out of town. She stayed for 3 days. During that time, he was supposedly providing thesis guidance, though neither of them can produce any evidence of academic work being done. Mrs. Rook, these are serious allegations. They're not allegations. They're facts." She opened the folder and pulled out papers. "Here's the university's policy on faculty-student relationships. Here's the code of conduct regarding conflicts of interest. Here's the housing policy that forbids faculty from cohabitating with current students. And here," she pulled out her phone, "are text messages between my husband and Miss Voss that clearly establish an inappropriate relationship." Bray looked at the papers like they might bite him. "Where did you get those messages?" "From a concerned party who had access to Miss Voss's phone." Bray looked at me. I looked back. "This is a privacy violation," he said weakly. "So is sleeping with your students," Nadine replied. "Which violation concerns you more?" Down the hallway, a door opened. Dr. Alder Rook stepped out of his office, saw us, and froze. For a second, nobody moved. Then Rook started walking toward us, fast. "You need to leave, now." "I'm discussing university policy with Dr. Bray," Nadine said calmly. "You're harassing me on my workplace." "Your workplace where you brought your mistress?" She smiled. "I don't think you want to have this conversation publicly, Alder. But if you do, I'm happy to oblige." Students were gathering now. Phones were coming out. This was going to be recorded, uploaded, shared. Rook realized it at the same moment I did. He turned to Bray. "This is a personal matter. It has everything to do with university policy," Bray interrupted. He looked exhausted. "Dr. Rook, I think you should go home. We'll be in touch." "I didn't break any rules. She's not in my class. She's not my advisee. I have no professional authority over—" "You have institutional authority," Nadine cut in. "You're a tenured professor. She's a graduate student. You control departmental resources, recommendation letters, professional connections. You think power only exists on paper?" She turned to Bray. "There's one more thing you should know. This isn't the first time." Bray went very still. "Excuse me?" "My husband has a history. 3 years ago, a student filed a complaint about his boundary issues. The complaint was dropped after she transferred departments. 2 years ago, another student mentioned in an exit interview that Dr. Rook made her uncomfortable during office hours. The university called it personality conflict." She pulled out more papers. "I have copies of both incidents. Would you like to review them?" Rook's face went white. "Those are sealed records. How did you—" I asked. "Turns out when you explain you're trying to protect other students from predatory behavior, people are surprisingly willing to share information." She handed the papers to Bray. "The pattern is clear. My husband uses his position to pursue young women who can't say no without risking their academic careers." The hallway was completely silent now. Even the students had stopped whispering. Bray looked at the papers, then at Rook, then at the growing crowd. "Dr. Rook, go home. Do not contact any students. Do not come to campus until you hear from HR." He turned to his assistant. Call security and get legal on the phone. This is insane, Rook said. You're going to ruin my career over… You ruined your career, I said. He spun toward me. You. This is all you. You called her. You started this. Yeah, I did. He moved toward me. I didn't move back. Campus security arrived before anything could happen. 2 officers in uniforms who looked annoyed at being called to handle what was clearly an administrative problem. They didn't arrest anyone, just stood there being official until Rook left. He walked down the hallway without looking back. I watched him go, feeling nothing. No victory, no satisfaction. Just a cold certainty that some decisions can't be undone. 3 hours later, the formal announcement came. Dr. Alder Rook had been suspended pending investigation. Mara Voss had been withdrawn from her thesis program due to academic misconduct and violation of student code of conduct. Not expelled exactly, but functionally the same thing. Caleb called me. Did you see? Yeah. Holy shit, Ethan. They actually did it. Yeah. How do you feel? I didn't have an answer for that. That evening, someone knocked on my apartment door. I knew who it was before I opened it. Mara stood in the hallway and she looked nothing like the person who'd left 3 days ago. No makeup, hair pulled back, eyes red from crying. She looked young and scared and furious all at once. This is your fault, she said. I know. They expelled me. My thesis is void. 3 years of work gone. Because you couldn't handle… Because you moved in with a married professor. Because you're vindictive. She pushed past me into the apartment. You destroyed both of our lives. His career is over. Mine is over. And for what? Because your ego was hurt? My ego? I laughed. Mara, you cheated on me. You moved into his house. You wore his clothes. You lied for months. What did you think would happen? I thought you loved me. I did love you. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Past tense. She stepped closer. We can fix this. You can tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them I was really working on my thesis. Tell them, no. Ethan, please, I'm begging you. I have nowhere to go. My parents won't return my calls. My advisors won't speak to me. The other students won't even look at me. Her voice broke. You're all I have left. Then you have nothing. She slapped me again. Harder this time. My head snapped to the side and I tasted copper. I loved you, she screamed. I gave you 3 years. I gave you everything. And you threw it all away because you gave him more. I touched my lip, saw blood on my fingers. You gave him everything I thought was mine. So yeah, I threw it away. Because it wasn't real. It was real. I just made a mistake. You made a choice, and choices have consequences. She tried to push past me into the apartment. I blocked the doorway. Let me in. No. I have nowhere else to go. Then go nowhere. But you're not staying here. She pulled out her phone. I'll call the police. I'll tell them you're threatening me. I'll say you've been stalking me. There are cameras in this hallway, I lied. And witnesses. Juno across the hall has been watching this whole conversation. I raised my voice slightly. Right, Juno? A door opened. Juno Pike stood there with her arms crossed, looking at Mara with the kind of contempt usually reserved for people who don't recycle. I've been watching, Juno confirmed. Mara looked between us, and something in her face shifted. The anger drained away, replaced by something worse. Realization that she'd lost. Completely. Finally. I used to love you, she whispered. But now I don't care. Good, I said. Now we match. Footsteps on the stairs. I heard them before I saw who it was. Nadine Rook appeared at the top of the stairwell. She looked at Mara, then at me, then at the blood on my lip. Miss Voss, she said pleasantly. Assaulting witnesses now. I didn't… I saw it, Juno said from her doorway. So did I, another voice called. More doors opening, more neighbors appearing. Mara backed toward the stairs. This isn't over. Yes, it is, Nadine said. She pulled out her phone and showed Mara the screen. I've just filed a restraining order on behalf of both myself and Mr. Vale. You're to have no contact with either of us, or with my soon-to-be ex-husband. Violation will result in criminal charges. She smiled. Have a good evening, Miss Voss. Mara looked at me one last time. I looked back. Neither of us said anything. She turned and ran down the stairs. I heard the exterior door slam, heard her footsteps fading into the night. Nadine walked over. Your lip is bleeding. I noticed. She hit you hard. She was motivated. You did this. It wasn't a question. Yeah, I did. She studied me for a long moment. How does it feel? I thought about it. The empty apartment, the destroyed career, the burning bridges, the woman I'd loved reduced to someone I didn't recognize. Necessary, I said. She nodded. Good answer. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. People like my husband and your girlfriend, they think they're special. They think the rules don't apply. They think they're too smart to get caught. She looked back at me. Sometimes it takes someone willing to burn everything down to prove them wrong. Was it worth it? I asked. Ask me in a year. She walked down the stairs. I went back inside my apartment, locked the door, sat on the couch where Mara used to sit when she still lived here, when she still pretended we had a future. My phone buzzed, a text from Caleb. You okay? Me. Define okay. Caleb. Fair point. Want to get a drink? Me. Yeah. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and looked around the apartment one last time. Tomorrow I'd start dealing with the aftermath. Tomorrow I'd figure out what came next. Tomorrow I'd decide if I was the hero or the villain in this story. But tonight, I was just the person who'd won. The hallway was empty when I left. The building was quiet. Outside, the city hummed with its usual indifferent noise, cars and voices and the sound of people living lives that didn't involve revenge or consequences or blood on someone's lip. I walked toward the bar where Caleb was waiting, hands in my pockets, feeling something cold settle in my chest. I'd loved her once, but now I didn't care. And somehow, that was worse than anything else.